Forgemaster Zilax's career ended the moment the molecular lattice held. 17 fundamental laws of physics bent themselves into pretzels around the steel sample sitting on his analysis platform, and the human metallurgist standing beside him was squinting at it like she'd seen this before. "Impossible," Zilax whispered, watching his instruments recalibrate for the third time in as many minutes. The readings couldn't be real. Metallic lattice structures didn't self-organize into geometric patterns this complex. They especially didn't do it while maintaining molecular bonds that should have collapsed under their own quantum weight. "Sorry, what's impossible?" Emma Johnson asked, leaning closer to the sample. She had her phone out, angling it to take a picture. "This," Zilax gestured at the entire analysis suite, where every screen displayed contradictory data. "All of this. The steel you were asked to examine. It exhibits properties that violate established metallurgical principles. According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. 3 Forge Masters have already resigned over their inability to replicate it. The Galactic Metallurgical Institute has convened an emergency council. This material could revolutionize construction, warfare, energy systems, or it could be a hoax that destroys the credibility of our entire field." Emma tilted her head, studying the sample through the transparent containment field. "Huh, can I touch it?" "Absolutely not. The molecular structure is—" She was already reaching through the field's access port, picking up the steel with her bare hands. Zilax's cardiac vessels constricted. "Oh yeah," Emma said, turning it over. "This is pattern-welded steel. See the waves." She traced a finger along the surface, following lines that Zilax's instruments insisted were impossible. "Pretty good work, actually. The layers are really consistent." Zilax's mandibles went numb. "Pattern, welded?" "Uh-huh." Emma pulled out her phone with her free hand, texting one-handed while still holding the impossible steel. "Looks like Damascus. My uncle makes knives like this on weekends. I should send him a picture. He'd appreciate the craftsmanship." The laboratory door burst open. Senior Counselor Kael'thas strode in, followed by 3 other members of the Emergency Metallurgical Council. Their scales had that particular shade of pale that indicated barely controlled panic. "Forgemaster Zilax," Kael'thas said, his vocal harmonics tight with stress. "We need your analysis immediately. The Council of Industrial Standards is demanding answers. If this steel is real, if someone has actually achieved stable complex lattice formation without quantum stabilization, then every metallurgical facility in the galaxy is operating on obsolete principles. If it's a hoax, we need to know before the military contracts are signed. 3 governments are already bidding on production rights for—" He stopped, mandibles dropping open. "Why is the human holding the sample?" Emma waved. "Hi, Emma Johnson, Earth Materials Consultant. And yeah, this is real. It's called Damascus steel. We've been making it for like 2,000 years. Give or take." The silence that followed could have stopped a supernova. 2,000. Kael'thas's voice faded into ultrasonic frequencies that Zilax's translator couldn't parse. "Well, the technique was lost for a while," Emma continued, oblivious to the existential crisis unfolding around her. "But people figured it out again. There are bladesmiths all over Earth who do this. Some of them do it as a hobby. My uncle makes kitchen knives and sells them at craft fairs." Zilax found his voice, though it emerged several octaves higher than normal. "Your uncle? Makes this, as a hobby. Yeah, I mean, he's pretty good at it, won some competitions." Emma finally noticed the collective aliens staring. "Wait, you guys have never seen pattern-welded steel before? How did you even— what did you think this was?" "A fundamental breakthrough in materials science," Kael'thas said faintly. "A potential revolution in molecular engineering. The most significant metallurgical discovery in 12,000 years." Emma blinked. "It's just folded steel. You heat it up, hammer it flat, fold it over, heat it up again. Repeat like 100 times. The carbon content creates the layers, and the pattern emerges when you etch it with acid. It's not like complicated, it's just time-consuming. Heat it up, Zilax repeated, and hammer it. Yeah, with a hammer. I mean, yeah. What else would you use? Kael'thas made a sound like a crystalline structure shattering. Forge Master Zilax, how long have we been attempting to replicate this material? 17 months, Senior Counselor. We've employed quantum field manipulation, molecular printers, nano-assembly matrices. And the humans, Kael'thas interrupted, his voice very quiet, have been making it with hammers for 2,000 years. Well, and anvils, Emma offered. And a good forge. Temperature control is important, but yeah, basically. She held up her phone. Want me to show you a YouTube video? There are tons of bladesmiths who post tutorials. The emergency council chamber filled with the galactic metallurgical community's finest minds within the hour. Zilax watched them arrive in order of seniority and panic level. Materials scientists from the Vega Institute, military contractors from 3 different star systems, theoretical physicists who'd built entire careers on lattice formation principles. Emma sat in the center of the room, her phone connected to the holographic display, queuing up videos. Okay, so this guy's pretty good, she said, pulling up a video titled Damascus Billet Basics, Part 1. He goes a little fast, but you can see the technique. Oh, and this one, she swiped to another video. This is my uncle's channel. He's better at explaining the temperature curves. The video began. A human male in a leather apron stood in what appeared to be a primitive fabrication facility. No quantum stabilizers, no molecular sensors, just fire and metal and tools that looked like they'd been designed by someone who'd never heard of precision engineering. So you want your forge around 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit, the uncle said cheerfully, shoving a piece of steel into glowing coals. You can tell by the color. You're looking for bright orange, almost yellow. Forge Master Vexthul made a choking sound. He's estimating temperature by visual spectrum analysis, without instruments? Yeah, you get a feel for it, Emma said. I mean, once you've done it a few hundred times. The video continued. The uncle pulled the steel out. Zilax's trained eye could see it was radiating in the exact frequency range for optimal carbon diffusion, and began hammering it. No force calculations, no stress distribution modeling, just rhythmic practice strikes that somehow achieved perfect material compression. Fold it over like this, the uncle demonstrated, then back into the forge. You're going to do this about 150 times. 100 times? Senior materials theorist Jotaro surged to his feet. The thermal stress cycles alone should cause catastrophic molecular failure. Emma looked up from her phone. I mean, it doesn't, though. That's kind of the point. The repeated heating and folding is what creates the layers. See? She pointed at the holographic display, where the uncle was explaining carbon migration patterns with the casual confidence of someone discussing the weather. The steel gets stronger each time, the layers bond together, and you end up with this really complex structure that's way tougher than regular steel. Kael'thas leaned forward. Miss Johnson, may I ask, how many humans can perform this technique? Oh, I don't know. Thousands? There are bladesmith guilds, competition circuits, YouTube channels dedicated to it. Some people do it professionally. Some do it as a hobby. My uncle's just one guy in Ohio. Ohio, Zilax repeated. That's a location on Earth? Yeah, it's a state. Pretty normal place. He's got a forge in his garage between the car and the lawn equipment. The silence was deafening. His garage, Vexthul said, not a specialized facility. Well, he built the forge himself, but yeah, it's not like you need fancy equipment. Emma pulled up another video. See, this is just a backyard setup. That's a brake drum forge. This guy literally made it from car parts and a hairdryer for the air supply. On screen, another human was producing impossible steel with equipment that wouldn't have passed safety inspection in a civilian workshop, much less a research facility. Military contractor R. Hill cleared his throat. Miss Johnson, I need to understand this correctly. You're saying that humans, regular civilian humans, produce this revolutionary material in personal fabrication spaces using primitive tools and visual temperature estimation? I mean, I wouldn't call it revolutionary, Emma said. It's just Damascus steel. It's been around forever. We used to make swords out of it back when swords were a thing people used. Now it's mostly decorative knives, art pieces, that kind of thing. Swords, Kael'thas said faintly. For killing people, yeah, before guns. Emma noticed their expressions. I feel like maybe I'm missing something here. Why is this such a big deal? Don't you guys have pattern-welded steel? Zilax pulled up his analysis results on the shared display. Miss Johnson, our instruments indicate that this material exhibits quantum-stable lattice formation at 17 different structural scales simultaneously. The molecular bonds should not be able to maintain coherence under standard atmospheric conditions. The stress distribution patterns violate at least 4 fundamental principles of material science. We have been attempting to replicate this using our most advanced technology for over a year. Emma squinted at the data. Okay, but you're overcomplicating it. It's just iron and carbon. You heat it up hot enough that the carbon can move around in the crystal structure, then you hammer it so the layers compress together. Do it enough times and you get this pattern. The quantum-stable lattice thing is that's just what folded steel looks like at the molecular level. Just what it looks like, Jotaro repeated. Just what it looks like. Yeah. Emma pulled up a Wikipedia article on her phone. Here. This explains the history. Damascus steel was originally made in the Middle East, that's a region on Earth, and the technique spread along trade routes. We lost the original method around the 18th century, but modern bladesmiths recreated it. There's actually a bunch of different approaches. Pattern welding, crucible steel, woots. There are multiple methods. Vexthul's scales had gone completely white. Well, yeah. Different cultures develop different techniques. Japanese sword makers did something similar with their katanas. Different folding patterns create different effects. Some people go for the raindrop pattern, some do ladder patterns, some do random. Emma trailed off. Okay, you guys are looking at me like I just said, magic is real. Miss Johnson, Kael'thas said very carefully, would you be willing to demonstrate this technique using our facilities? Emma shrugged. Sure, I guess. Do you have a forge I can use? Fair warning, though, if you've only got the high-tech stuff with all the quantum stabilizers and whatever, it might actually make it harder. This works best with pretty basic equipment. Zilax felt reality tilt sideways. You want basic equipment? Yeah, sometimes the simple approach is better, you know? Emma smiled. Can't overthink it. The primitive forge facility sat in the basement of the Metallurgical Institute, a relic from the early days of galactic industrial development. Nobody had used it in decades. Modern metallurgy was all quantum stabilization fields and molecular printers. The equipment down here was almost embarrassingly simple. Thermal chambers, pressure hammers, basic atmospheric controls. Emma looked around and grinned. Oh, perfect. This is actually way better than my uncle's garage. You've even got a power hammer. That'll save a lot of time. Zilax watched her move through the space with casual confidence, checking the forge temperature controls, testing the hammer mechanism, examining the anvil, a solid block of steel that hadn't seen use in anyone's living memory. Behind the observation window, every major figure in galactic metallurgy had crowded in to watch. The quantum sensor arrays were active, recording every molecular fluctuation. This was either going to validate 2,000 years of human metallurgical intuition or prove that Emma Johnson had no idea what she was talking about. Okay, so first thing, Emma pulled her hair back into a ponytail. We need to get the forge up to temperature. I'm thinking around 2,300 Fahrenheit to start. That's about, she paused, calculating, 1,260 Celsius? You guys use Celsius, right? We use quantum-calibrated thermal indexes, Zilax said. Right, but can you set it to 160 Celsius? Yes. Great, and I'll need some high-carbon steel stock. Doesn't have to be fancy. Actually, simpler is better. Pure iron and carbon, nothing exotic. Zilax provided the materials, feeling increasingly like he was participating in some elaborate performance art piece. Emma selected several bars of steel, examined them, nodded in satisfaction. Perfect. These'll work great. She placed them in the forge chamber. Now we wait for it to heat up. Should take about 10 minutes. In the observation room, Senior Forge Master Kael'thas activated his communicator. Zilax could see him on the monitor, speaking urgently to someone off-screen. Probably the Galactic Council, probably explaining that they were about to watch a human attempt to revolutionize metallurgy using equipment that belonged in a museum. So while that's heating, Emma said, I should explain what's actually happening at the molecular level. It's not complicated, but you guys seem to be thinking about it wrong. Please, Zilax said, explain where the entire galactic scientific community has gone wrong. Emma either missed his sarcasm or ignored it. Okay, so steel is iron with carbon in it, right? When you heat it up to the right temperature, the crystal structure changes. The iron goes from body-centered cubic to face-centered cubic arrangement. That's when the carbon can move around easily. When you hammer it, you're forcing the layers together, creating these really tight bonds. Then when it cools, the structure changes back, and the carbon gets locked into the new configuration. Yes, Zilax said, we understand the basic principles of carbon diffusion. Right, but here's the thing, you're trying to control it too precisely. You've got all these quantum stabilizers trying to maintain perfect molecular alignment, but that actually prevents the natural organization that makes Damascus steel work. It's like, Emma paused, thinking, it's like trying to force a river to flow in a perfectly straight line. Sure, you can do it with enough technology, but you're fighting against the natural behavior of the system. It's easier and better to just let it flow naturally and work with the patterns it creates on its own. The forge chimed. Emma pulled on heavy gloves, primitive thermal protection, nothing like the force field systems Zilax was used to, and opened the chamber. The steel bars glowed bright orange, exactly the color she'd described. Perfect temperature, she said, pulling them out and placing them on the anvil. She arranged them in a stack, then reached for the power hammer controls. Okay, so watch what happens when I compress these together. The hammer struck, once, twice, 3 times. The glowing steel bars merged, layers pressing together under the impact. On every monitor, molecular sensors went haywire. Impossible, Jotaro breathed from the observation room. The thermal stress should cause separation, not bonding. Emma, oblivious to the alien panic behind the glass, shoved the compressed steel back into the forge. We do this a bunch of times. Heat, fold, hammer, repeat. Each cycle adds more layers and refines the carbon distribution. You want to aim for about 100 to 200 folds total. 100 folds, Zilax said weakly. Yeah, it takes a while. That's why Uncle Dave usually does this on weekends. It's not hard, just time-consuming. Emma checked her phone. Oh, speaking of, he says hi and wants to know if you guys have any questions about technique. He's pretty active in the bladesmith community, so he loves talking about this stuff. Zilax stared at the message notification. Your uncle, the hobbyist, is offering to provide technical consultation to the Galactic Metallurgical Institute. I mean, he's got like 30 years of experience. He's probably made a few hundred Damascus blades at this point. He knows his stuff. Emma pulled the steel out again. It had returned to the perfect forging temperature, a feat that should have required precise quantum timing. She folded it over on itself and hammered it flat. The molecular sensors captured everything. Each hammer strike created pressure waves that propagated through the material in patterns that shouldn't exist. The carbon atoms were migrating, but not according to any model in the galactic database. They were following some other rule set, some intuitive pattern that humans had discovered through trial and error 2,000 years ago. Emma worked steadily, her movements economical and practiced. heat, fold, hammer, heat, fold, hammer. She wasn't even looking at the instrumentation. She was reading the steel itself, judging temperature by color, assessing compression by sound, feeling the material respond to her techniques. "Miss Johnson," Kael'thas's voice came through the intercom. "The molecular scans indicate that you're achieving quantum-stable lattice formation without any stabilization fields. How is this possible?" Emma paused mid-hammer strike. Because that's how steel works? I don't know what a quantum-stable lattice is, but if you mean the layers are bonding together really tightly, then yeah, that's the whole point. But the theoretical models... Okay, no offense, Emma interrupted, but maybe your theoretical models are wrong. Because humans have been doing this for literally millennia, and it works, like consistently works. There are historical swords that are hundreds of years old and still in great condition. In the observation room, Zilax could see several scientists having what appeared to be emotional breakdowns. Vexthul had his head in his hands. Jotaro was recalculating something on a datapad with increasingly frantic movements. Military contractor R. Hill was speaking rapidly into a communicator, probably updating his superiors that their million-credit quantum forge development program had just been obsoleted by a human with a hammer. Emma kept working. 50 folds, 75, 100. The steel transformed under her hands, layers multiplying exponentially, the internal structure becoming more complex with each cycle, and through it all she maintained that casual competence, like she was following a recipe for cookies rather than breaking fundamental principles of material science. At fold 120, she pulled the steel out and examined it critically. "Okay, this is looking good. Another 20 or 30 folds should do it. The pattern's really coming together." She wasn't wrong. Even Zilax, staring at the raw molecular data, could see it. A structure of impossible elegance and strength, forming not despite the primitive techniques, but because of them. The human approach wasn't fighting against the material's nature. It was working with it, guiding it, letting the steel become what it wanted to become. "How did you know?" Zilax asked quietly. "How did your ancestors figure this out?" Emma shrugged, placing the steel back in the forge. "Someone needed a better sword, I guess. Tried some stuff, noticed that folding the steel made it stronger, kept experimenting until they got good at it. Then they taught other people, and those people refined the technique, and eventually you end up with a whole tradition." She grinned. "Humans are really good at iterating. We might not always understand why something works, but if it works, we'll keep doing it and gradually figure out how to do it better." "Trial and error," Kael'thas said over the intercom. "You developed this through trial and error." "Well, yeah. How else do you develop anything?" Zilax thought about the quantum forge facilities, the millions of credits in research, funding, the theoretical frameworks built over thousands of years. We use predictive modeling, computational simulation, theoretical derivation." "Huh." Emma pulled the steel out for fold 140. "Does that work well?" There was a very long silence. "Not for this, apparently," Zilax admitted. Fold 167. Emma pulled the steel from the forge one final time, examined it under the light, and nodded in satisfaction. "Okay, this is done." "Well, the forging part anyway. Still needs to be ground into shape and etched to bring out the pattern, but the hard part's finished." She set it on the cooling rack. "Should take about an hour to cool down enough to handle safely." On every monitor, the molecular analysis results scrolled past in real time. The impossible steel, Damascus, Emma called it, exhibited the exact same properties as the original sample. 17-layer quantum-stable lattice, self-organizing geometric patterns, stress distribution that violated established models, all of it achieved with heat, hammer, and time. Kael'thas entered the forge room, moving like someone in a dream. He approached the cooling steel, staring at it with an expression that Zilax had never seen on the senior forgemaster's face before, wonder and something close to grief. "We were so certain," Kyle Toss said quietly. "The quantum stabilization approach, it made perfect theoretical sense. We built entire industries around it, training programs, research institutes, and all along—" "Hey, it's not your fault," Emma said. "You guys probably just didn't have access to the historical knowledge. Damascus steel technique was lost even on Earth for a while. Took us decades to figure out how to recreate it." She pulled off her gloves. "Plus, it sounds like your technology is actually really advanced. Maybe too advanced? Like, when you've got quantum stabilizers and molecular printers, you probably don't think about just hitting metal with a hammer." "No," Zilax said, "we don't." He looked at the readouts, at 2 years of failed research made irrelevant in 3 hours. "We assumed that precision was always better, that more control meant better results." "Sometimes," Emma said, "but sometimes you need to let the material do its thing. Steel wants to form these kinds of structures when you work it this way. You're not forcing it into an unnatural state. You're helping it achieve its natural optimal configuration." She checked her phone again. "Oh, Uncle Dave sent a link to his instructional video series. He's got like 40 episodes covering different techniques and patterns, free on YouTube." "Your uncle," R. Hill said, having joined them in the forge room, "has 40 episodes of instructional content, available freely." "Yeah, he likes teaching. He does workshops too, in-person ones, but those cost money obviously. The videos are free though." Emma showed him her phone. "See, this one's about different folding patterns. This one covers temperature control. This one's troubleshooting common problems." Zilax watched the military contractor's scales cycle through several colors associated with extreme emotional stress. Hill's government had invested billions in quantum forge development, and here was a human offering free tutorials that made all of it obsolete. "Miss Johnson," Kelthos said carefully, "would Earth be willing to establish a formal knowledge exchange program? We can offer compensation, technology sharing, diplomatic considerations." Emma waved him off. "I mean, you'd have to talk to actual diplomats about the formal stuff, but honestly, most bladesmiths would probably just love to have alien students. The community's pretty open. We like sharing techniques." She smiled. "Fair warning, though, my uncle's gonna want to see what kind of steel you guys have on other planets. He's always looking for interesting materials to experiment with." "We have extensive material libraries," Zilax offered, "alloys from 17 different star systems." "Oh, he's gonna love that." "Yeah, I'll connect you guys." Emma picked up her bag. "So, am I done here? Because I've got another consultation scheduled tomorrow. Some ship manufacturer wants advice on hull plating." "Wait," Vexthul said, emerging from the observation room. "You're leaving? Just like that? I mean, yeah? You wanted to know if the Damascus steel was real and how to make it. I showed you. The piece on the cooling rack matches your original sample. Once you etch it, the pattern should be basically identical." Emma checked her phone. "My ride's gonna be here in 20 minutes, so—" "But the implications," Jotaro protested. "The entire field of metallurgy needs to be revised. We'll have questions, applications, theoretical frameworks to rebuild." "Right, and Uncle Dave's videos cover most of that. Plus there are like a dozen books about Damascus steel on Earth. I can send you a reading list if you want." Emma headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, one more thing. This same folding technique works for other materials too. Titanium, copper alloys, even some ceramics if you adjust the temperature curves. Might want to look into that." She left, just walked out of the laboratory where she'd casually demolished 2,000 years of galactic metallurgical theory, leaving behind a cooling billet of impossible steel and a room full of scientists having existential crises. Zilax stood in the silence, staring at the Damascus steel. It was beautiful in a way, those flowing patterns visible even without etching, the complexity hidden in something that looked so simple on the surface. Forge Master, Kael'thas said, his voice steady despite everything. I'm appointing you head of a new division, Applied Human Metallurgical Techniques. Your primary mission is to study Earth's craft traditions and integrate them with our existing knowledge base. Yes, Senior Forge Master, Zilax said automatically. Also, contact Miss Johnson's uncle. David, I believe she said? Kael'thas pulled out his datapad. Offer him a full research consultant position. Whatever his fee is, pay it. And find out what other human crafts we should be investigating. Rahel cleared his throat. With respect, Senior Forge Master, the military applications alone. Yes, I'm aware, Kael'thas interrupted. Which is precisely why we need to understand this thoroughly before it becomes widespread. The humans have had this technology for 2,000 years and used it primarily for kitchen knives and art pieces. That suggests a level of cultural maturity we should probably learn from as well. Zilax thought about Emma's casual competence, her uncle's hobby forge, the YouTube videos available to anyone. They don't think of it as a revolution, he said slowly. To them, it's just something people do, a craft. Yes, Kael'thas agreed, and that, Forge Master Zilax, might be the most important lesson of all. 3 months later, Zilax stood in his new laboratory. The Applied Human Metallurgical Techniques Division had been allocated an entire wing of the institute, and watched his apprentices attempt their first Damascus billets. They were getting better. The first few weeks had been disasters, quantum-trained minds struggling to work without stabilization fields, trying to calculate what should be intuited. But gradually, they were learning to read the steel by color and sound, to feel the rhythm of hammer strikes, to trust the process rather than the instruments. On the wall, a holographic screen displayed one of Uncle Dave's videos, the 20th in the series, covering advanced pattern techniques. David Chen, master bladesmith from Ohio Earth, had been enthusiastically providing remote consultation for the past 2 months. He'd also sent physical samples of his work, including a kitchen knife that now sat in a secure display case as one of the most thoroughly analyzed objects in galactic history. The knife was extraordinary. Simple carbon steel folded 200 times with a pattern like flowing water etched into the blade. It cut through modern composite materials like they were smoke. The molecular structure was so efficient that it remained sharp after stress tests that should have destroyed it. Dave had made it in his garage as a birthday present for his wife. Zilax's communicator chimed. Kael'thas, requesting a status update for the Galactic Council. The Council was meeting today to discuss the broader implications of the human craft knowledge situation, as they were calling it. Because it wasn't just metallurgy anymore. After Emma's demonstration, someone had asked about ceramics. She'd mentioned Japanese pottery techniques, something called raku firing, that produced effects the galactic materials science community had considered impossible. That led to inquiries about glasswork, woodworking, textile arts. Every answer revealed another field where humans had developed sophisticated techniques through pure experimentation and tradition. The Vega Institute had just hired a human woodworker to teach primitive joinery techniques that created stronger bonds than their molecular adhesives. A textile manufacturer on Kepler Station was paying premium rates for consultants who understood natural fiber processing. 3 different universities were developing human craft methodology degree programs. It was humbling in a way that the galactic community desperately needed. They'd been so proud of their advanced technology, their theoretical frameworks, their quantum-precise control over materials. And then humans showed up with hammers and anvils and 2,000 years of just trying stuff to see what worked. Forge Master, one of his apprentices, a young materials scientist named Lirana, held up her billet. I think this one's ready for etching. Zilax examined it. 140 folds, good temperature control throughout, clean compression. The pattern would be lovely once revealed. Excellent work. Take it to the etching station. Remember, ferric chloride solution, about 10 minutes. Lirana practically glowed with pride. 6 months ago, she'd been working on quantum stabilization algorithms. Now she was learning to make Damascus steel with the enthusiasm of a convert. Half his division was the same, former quantum metallurgists who'd discovered that sometimes the old ways weren't primitive, just different. His communicator chimed again, not Kael'thas this time, a message from Emma Johnson. "Hey, Uncle Dave wanted me to ask if you've tried pattern-welded titanium yet. Also, quick question. Do you guys know about mokume gain? It's a Japanese technique for layering different metals. Creates really cool patterns, might be useful for your decorative applications." Zilax stared at the message, pattern-welded titanium, mokume gan. Each casual suggestion from Emma or her uncle opened new avenues of research, revealed new gaps in galactic knowledge. He typed back, "We haven't explored titanium yet. Please send information. Also, what is mokume gan?" The response came immediately. "It's like Damascus, but with different metals instead of folded steel. Copper and silver is traditional, but you can do wild combinations. I'll send you some links. Oh, and Dave says if you want to try really advanced stuff, look up Wootz steel. That's the original Damascus technique from ancient India. Different process, similar results. Fair warning, it's really hard to get right." Zilax closed his eyes. Wootz steel. Another technique, another gap in their knowledge, another thing that humans had figured out centuries ago through patient experimentation. He opened his eyes and began typing a message to Kael'thas. "Senior Forge Master, we need to expand the division. Miss Johnson has informed me of at least 3 more metallurgical techniques we haven't yet investigated. Recommend establishing formal Earth exchange program immediately. Also suggest we begin cataloging other human craft traditions before we discover more gaps in our knowledge base." The reply came quickly. "Already in progress. The Council is approving funding for a comprehensive human craft knowledge initiative. We're also establishing a new protocol. Before declaring anything impossible, check if humans have already been doing it casually for centuries." Zilax couldn't help it. He laughed. It came out as a series of clicks that startled his apprentices, but he didn't care. The mighty Galactic Metallurgical Institute, brought to humility by a hobbyist from Ohio and his niece. It was, he reflected, probably the best thing that had ever happened to them. "Forge Master?" Liarana approached with her etched billet. The pattern had emerged beautifully, flowing lines of varying carbon concentration, creating an organic geometry that quantum stabilization could never achieve. "What do you think?" "I think," Zilax said, examining the impossible steel that was now possible, "that we're going to be learning from humans for a very long time, and I think that's exactly what we need." His communicator chimed once more. Another message from Emma. "Oh yeah, one more thing. My cousin does custom motorcycle parts with pattern-welded titanium. Want me to send you pictures? He uses a different folding pattern than traditional Damascus. Pretty cool results." Zilax showed the message to Liarana. She read it, mandibles dropping open. "Pattern-welded titanium is theoretically impossible. The crystalline structure can't sustain repeated thermal cycling." "And yet," Zilax interrupted gently, "Emma's cousin apparently does it for motorcycles." Liarana was quiet for a moment, then, "Can you ask her for his contact information? I'd like to write a research proposal." "Already done," Zilax said, typing a response to Emma. "Yes, please send pictures and contact information. Your cousin might be interested in consulting for our expanded titanium research program. Also, please tell your uncle that he's transformed galactic metallurgy and we're very grateful." Emma's response. "LOL," he says. "No problem, happy to help. Let me know if you guys want a video call. I can show you some other stuff. Also, I'm curious about alien metals." Zilax smiled, a human expression he'd picked up over the past 3 months. Uncle Dave, the hobbyist bladesmith, offering to show the Galactic Metallurgical Institute some other stuff, as if he hadn't already revolutionized their entire field. In the corner of the laboratory, The Damascus billet Emma had made sat in its display case, a reminder of the day everything changed. Next to it, Zilax had placed a simple placard with a quote from Emma herself. "Sometimes you need to let the material do its thing." It was, he thought, the most profound metallurgical insight in galactic history, and she'd said it like it was obvious. Because to humans, it was.